first discussion was, what are the main issues that were raised about the current situation? Let's have Team A first, shall we? What were the main points that came up? Lots of them, I believe.
So, yes, and if any of our group feel that I'm veering off point, please feel free to shout at me. I think one of the key points that was raised in our group is who actually has the responsibility in the workplace. Is it the employer? Is it the employee? And is there a role for some more self-management of the issues? Not only health issues and maintaining activity, but social and psychological issues as well.
Is that something that came up in your group? Elsewhere?
No, interestingly, although, I mean, the ideas that were generated in our group, because we actually wanted people to sort of think of practical ideas, were very self-reflective. I think people were saying, what can I do? And some ideas, and one of which was, somebody was talking about how complicated it is with people's lack of time being an issue. One of the main challenges that people say is their demands in their life are that they don't have time. But ideas, for instance, there's quite a high number of people commute from Suffolk every day to London. And one of our colleagues was just saying, why is it we have a bar on a train, I know that's a source of contention, a buffet, that might sell sort of not very fresh sandwiches or beers, but doesn't have an exercise bike? For somebody who's actually stuck on a train, and this is interesting because last week with the floods in the north of England, there was somebody stuck on there's a number of people stuck on a train for 14 or nearly 15 hours. Can you imagine that as a kind of enforced captivity? But for many people, what we used to call the misery line, the train line down to London, is actually could be a source of opportunity for maybe a slim exercise bike or an opportunity to do something physical. Why do we have a bar there? Why couldn't we have something in addition to that? So that was a kind of a self-reflected... Peter, do you want to come in?
Well, I think it also ties back to the issues about responsibility, because I interpreted that particular comment about individuals and collectives articulating a demand, physically saying what they want. The rail franchises are businesses. If there was a sufficient demand from individuals and collectives for that sort of service, I guess they would think carefully about providing it if it increased their profitability. So it's about the way in which we articulate some of these demands that for me is important. But if it goes solely as a sort of health message, okay, it gets lost in the fog. But if it goes as something that can be understood in a commercial sense, it may well have a chance of succeeding.
Okay, so we've got lack of time, we've got the commuters. I love the idea of the exercise bike. You can imagine a queue of them down the corridor waiting to go on it or something, couldn't you? And what else did you come up in your group?
One of the key points was, at which stage do we intervene? Have we left it too late by the time individuals are coming to retirement age to give them the information they need to go to the next level?
Yes, I came in on talking about primary schools and when people leave school and so on, what a challenge that might be too. So did you come to any conclusions about a good time to intervene?
Well, not really, no. I think one of the key, a good point that was raised is maybe we have more education when individuals join a company and start paying towards a pension scheme, or more information from the government about pension schemes, but that could be the target point, so that you actually are raising awareness very early on, so that people start thinking about the consequences of.
I think that's quite interesting how it's quite hard to separate out the main issues and then, but what are the opportunities, because the two go together, don't they? So I'm hoping our researchers who write this up will forgive us for that, because logically that's how we think. We think of a problem, we try and find a solution, and that seems to be how the discussions have gone a little bit today. So give us another issue that came up perhaps in your discussion.
Again, it was about who do we target, really. And I think it's a point that's been reinforced throughout the day, that we are looking at a very heterogeneous population in the ageing population. There are those that are maybe more capable of self-management of the issues. So there's still a group that we're missing out who maybe don't have the educational backup or family support backup to make decisions.
Actually, I don't remember which group it was, and forgive me for that, but one of the groups, and it might have been yours, was saying that some of the people who need perhaps the advice and the intervention most, the ones that are going to be the most difficult because of lack of educational opportunities or the social group they're in or whatever it might be. So it might have been your group, that might have been something that I overheard as well. What else did you come up with issues?
Just back to what are the triggers for changing your behaviour. In our group, it was suggested that actually sometimes it's a life-changing situation for a friend or a colleague. Somebody perhaps experiences a very rapid deterioration in their health, or they lose somebody their age, and this actually is a trigger for people to change their behaviour. And we were thinking that might be quite a negative way to change your behaviour, but it's effective in the sense that people are thinking of perhaps their own mortality and thinking about their own health. So that actually acted as a trigger for people to change their behaviour and think about the age they were and their level of health.
I like the point that was also raised about, and I think it might have been you that said it actually, in the group we're talking about, what makes you actually take more exercise or do something, and triggers came up, and you made the point that sometimes people want adrenaline rather than just exercise. And I know that Karen Pear is here from Cancer Campaign for Suffolk, said that when they get someone to climb Kilimanjaro or something, it is the adrenaline thing. It's not actually to get fit, that's not why they do it, it's excitement of it.
Yeah.
And we all reach a certain age, sort of 50-ish, where we're craving that. So is that the sort of trigger we could all look for?
Well, I think it's actually been a tried and tested model, because Action Medical Research, cancer research, are actually getting thousands of pounds now generated through people possibly reaching that point where they've done most things, or they maybe haven't done something that for them represents quite a challenge. So it might be running a marathon, doing a long bike ride, doing a long trek. Now, I know this is about people having the time and the resources and ability to do it, but many of these activities, for a very small kind of amount of time, are actually free from the doorstep activities. Running and cycling is free from your doorstep. Getting involved in, say, the Sunrise cycle tour up the Suffolk coast, in return for fundraising, you've actually had a whole day of meeting a whole range of people. On Saturday in Suffolk, 1,500 people took part in something called the Dunwich Dynamo, which is a cycle ride up from North London that's been going on for years, ending up at Dunwich. And that's 1,500 people coming to Suffolk from North London. That is quite an amazing large number of people.
And I'm surprised you said it's been going for so long, because I heard it on BBC Radio Suffolk this year and I'd never heard of it before. So obviously these things are going on and we don't always know about
it. Was actually about commemorating some airmen who died, so it's actually came about through that. Yeah.
Well,
yeah, it was this thing about incentives, that people feeling good about achievement and so forth. And if you look at the sort of micro version, what we also know that as we are more active, there are two things that go on. One is that it triggers off endorphins around your body, all right? And you don't have to be active for too long to get that physical response to yourself. But also, immediately, our cortisol stress levels come down. Mm-hmm. And I'm wondering if part of this is, whilst that type of achievement incentive, but it's also encouraging people to recognise, literally in the moment, how they're feeling. Because we all claim that physical activity makes us feel good, and it does. So there's a very good physiological response why it makes us feel good, but getting people to actually recognise it and value it in the moment, that is making an immediate difference. And one of that study I referred to this morning about women, another study in Cornwall where they looked at older women, and one of their responses was, don't tell me I might not fall or I might not have a heart attack in 20 years' time, it's too late. What's in it for me now? So there's that, and I think someone mentioned in our group the nudge theory. What are we getting now from it, as well as those longer term achievements.
Okay, so we've mentioned people not have as the main issues as time, when to intervene, education, who, how, what triggers and so on. What are the obstacles? What did you come up with in your discussions about what are the obstacles to improve healthy ageing in the workplace?
We have a bit of discussion about messages. And starting from a simple discussion about, do you know what, 10 minutes is a very simple message, build up 10 minutes, but then the multiplicity of messages that come from different organisations, from different sources, for different reasons, and a bit of a discussion about were they coming down from Big Brother, from central government, were they NHS Health focused, and actually who do people listen to receive these messages, and when are they in the best time to receive them? And there is some evidence, I think, that older people actually do still value the role of the GP, the authoritative source. Perhaps younger people not so much, because we can access health information from other sources. But one of the things about active ageing is the role of the peer. That many older people are far more likely to take messages from what we call someone like me. So it's someone else with a dodgy knee. It's someone else who's got angina. Because if they can, I can. And so it's in a sense who's best positioned to offer messages to people about their health, about their lifelong activity.
Okay, what sort of obstacles did you identify?
Well, I think if we just stay with that theme of the issue of fragmented message and fragmented policy, which creates a context of sort of confused messages and a sort of fog in which we try to operate in. I think, I'll go back to something I said earlier this morning, it's not that we're not doing great things, and it's not that some of those great things are incredibly successful. We just know it's not good enough. And in terms of trying to find new ways forward, I'm sure that the fragmented nature of the messages and sometimes the rather authoritative way in which they're delivered is problematic. But the other is I guess is more personal bugbear, so forgive me on this, but it's the short-termism of so much of what we do. We create initiatives, we create a message, we create a band, it runs for as long as something is funded, and then it stops. And it's the sustainability. These issues are too important to rely solely on short-termism. And so some of the stuff that we've been doing in Suffolk, I think some of the joined-up approaches, some of the commitments to sustainability, some of the long-term focus. When Healthy Ambitious Suffolk was created, it had a 20-year vision of what it was trying to do, make Suffolk the healthiest county. That sort of approach, for me, is absolutely vital. And I think in all the discussions, both in the groups today and from the platform, have reinforced that. The need for sustainable developments which are coordinated and coherent and have a future in terms of what they're trying to achieve.
So both groups came up with the message. A couple of the business people said to me in the break between the two sessions that all of this is fine, but the economy at the moment means that there just isn't the money around to do all these wonderful things. Did the financial side come up with you and Bob in your group?
It did, because I think we started to get to a conversation about, I think, two things. In times of scarce resources where we are, did we make a decision, almost I think suggested, to pull services away from certain groups that we know can self-manage, are self-motivated, and therefore target those who need more support. And I think the other thing was, in a sense, about having to work smarter in terms of fewer resources to go around. Therefore, we need to be more clever, more smart about the way in which we work.
Did it come up in your group?
Yeah, I think having the opportunity to have stronger insights into what would work really, and having the time to think about those and gather those from a variety of different people. We were talking about the role of BT in our group, and actually it was a challenge to the Chamber of Commerce to make a stronger link between BT as a fairly large company in the county with some of the smaller businesses that are in proximity to BT as to where they're situated, that then will give opportunity for more connection between the businesses in that part of Suffolk. And that's something that we, again, could work harder at, I think, improving the links and the lateral links between businesses on business estates and industrial estates.
So in the same way that you get a big supermarket with lots of smaller shops nearby and they feed off each other, you could work the same way with health initiatives and fitness. And interesting thought. What about the opportunities? I know that you didn't actually really officially get onto the second question, but other opportunities, did they come up apart from putting exercise bikes on commuter trains?
Didn't, and I apologise, that was my very bad facilitator. We didn't get on to the second question in time. I don't think, did we?
We
Carry on.
You have any papers?
sorry, I told you again, but we did
Well,
work
hang on, we've got a point over here.
Yeah.
Well, not used to speaking through a microphone. Just to go back to what you said about big Sainsbury's, for example, the small shops, the business in the community actually do run that mentoring scheme.
Yeah.
Could you tip your microphone slightly more towards
Like
you?
that?
Thank you. And a bit closer, yes.
Like that?
Maybe switch it on.
Can you hear me now?
Is that on? Yes. Yes, that's working. Thank you.
Business in the community do actually foster those links between FTSE 100 and SMEs. That's one of their drivers, is to create a mentorship programme. And I believe BT actually are part of that programme.
Right, so that is happening.
It's happening, yeah.
Great,
It's happening.
very good, thank you. Sorry, we interrupted there, I can't remember where we were up to. Opportunities, yes.
The other thing that was mentioned was obviously clearly social media, here to stay, Facebook, tweeting, opportunities.
Did anyone tweet today? Yes!
Hey.
Nice, thank you.
But the other bit is actually, it was interesting, we had some dinner last night and one of our colleagues who's been working on organising this said, well, we don't have an app for this. Just running and planning a conference like this is something that I don't think there's an app exists.
Ooh,
If we have a gap in the market, we can create a product and a new service, which is an opportunity for healthy ambitions. It's an opportunity for businesses. Come up with ideas, take them to market. And the other week I was in the company of somebody who started up the confused.com, and she just got on with it. She just thought of, how can I make life easier? And that's actually what we can all do. Think of ideas and see if we could actually generate them, because we shouldn't hold ourselves back in our creative opportunity. I think we're all potentially very creative. Something hampers us from moving on with it, perhaps.
Can I just tell you that I've been and looked at the post-it notes, and there's some great ideas there. Someone's talking about more dance, exercise, using dance. Someone saying fruit and water in every village, in every office, sorry. But what about 10 exercises to do while you're waiting at the printer? Isn't that a great idea?
Yeah.
Or what about a balance activity that you could do while you're at the coffee table, but not while you're holding your cup, was pointed out. But I mean, the 10 exercises to do while you're at the printer, it would be a great app, wouldn't it, actually? So we could be quite innovative in these things.
I think the other thing that came up for me very strongly and was the way in which people were identifying health benefits, healthy age benefits, by looking at things like road transport issues, use of green spaces, role of public transport in facilitating access to. So it's not just about there's some facilities. It's actually how do you get to those facilities, particularly in rural areas. What's the time scale for getting to those resources? Those sorts of issues, and that's, I think, was very, very encouraging, because it was moving the debate away from important as they are, the practical issues, into more policy issues. Very importantly.
Sorry. Oh, beg your pardon. Can we have a microphone here, please?
Just thinking about more wider on policy, I'm thinking about planning. I think there are things like this 106 policy, and I think perhaps sometimes we could be smarter. It's can you explain
I was going to say,
what is 106?
106?
But I think
It's essentially the monies that a developer can get through planning gain, and often they're used for infrastructure or for arts and installations and things of that sort. And I think the point is, could they be used for health?
Well, my understanding is not great about 106, but what I think we could perhaps be smarter is they can be a bit scattergun. And maybe we should think wider on that and actually join 106s together to make them more significant and more sustainable, rather than a little something here and another little something somewhere else. It's the sort of thing that I was thinking about. But also thinking about the green infrastructure and stuff, and actually how do you get joined up things, so there's no point having a cycle path or walkways and things that suddenly stopped. You know, it's about making it sustainable, that it actually has a destination or a circuit round.
Okay, so lovely, thank you. Another point, maybe?
Sorry, holding the mic and speaking, apologies. I think one challenge I would like to offer is there necessarily something wrong with a scattergun approach if you learn something from each initiative that you do? So it's not necessarily that small-scale failures are a problem, it's that we don't set them up in such a way that we actually learn why they failed or why they succeeded.
And yet one of the points that came out of the discussion was the fact that if there's too many messages, people don't really get bored of listening and switch off.
There is that, but I think it's a really great point. I mean, what often happens is there's small-scale initiatives which are not in any meaningful way evaluated, and I think the point you're making is spot on. We don't necessarily learn from the lessons of the past, and if we did that, we would be moving faster and more effectively.
And I think just to add, it was something very helpfully that Bob, as a colleague to this programme and who's arrived for this conference, pointed out that around the country there are other parts of the UK that have managed to get funding for active ageing, but we're not connecting with them. So unless we can create the network for us all to link together, and that network doesn't currently exist, so how can we actually create the network to share the learning so it doesn't just stay in one place?
I think that was a key thing, was to learn also from other initiatives that have gone on before.
It's quite encouraging to hear our colleagues who are here from Europe saying actually they're picking up ideas from us, and in some ways, certainly with Spain and Italy, we're further ahead than theirs. So it was nice to pat ourselves on the back slightly as well. And point over there.
I mean, I think just coming back to Elspeth's point, I think this dissemination of the knowledge, the evaluation is fine, but it's all in these reports that we can't see, and I think it's really important, especially as an academic who looks through research and things, that we are able to disseminate it. And I think somebody else mentioned about getting groups together for occupational health people and businesses together to actually be able to do that. And I think certainly that's one of my key things that I'd like to kind of put forward, that maybe we can offer to try and get the network together so we can disseminate that in future. And I think, you know, it'd be really
Actually, if you
useful.
look at your evaluation form, there's a little box on there to say tick if you don't want to stay involved, but so please don't tick it, anybody. The idea is to form sort of a reference group for the progress project so that they can stay in touch with you and you with them and do exactly that, keep in touch with what's happening and share thoughts and ideas. So that's already in the sort of the offing for today.
I think it needs to be more than just emails, it needs to be
Something like this. Or we like an excuse to all get together again, that's fine. Thank you. Yeah. Right. Final point to you before we just sum up for today. We were talking about employers and business and employers' responsibility, if it's the government's responsibility, the employer's responsibility. Did that come up in your group at all?
It did, in terms of the often difficulty in smaller businesses in managing staff expectations, especially if there's not diversity of jobs within the company. So for someone who's less physically able, what do you do with that individual?
When the painter can no longer go up the ladder,
Yeah,
for example. Yes. Did it come up in your group as well?
Yeah, I think so. Often it's communicated in terms of available resources, but I think the issue really is that we know we're in a global recession, and we know public sector cuts, etc. We're in a new era of sort of civic leadership, and I think the issue is why I was really interested in your group came up with the issue about responsibility, because it's everyone's responsibility. So it's about personal responsibility. It's about collective responsibility. Employers have got legal and other moral responsibilities to address this, and our communities have responsibilities. The key is to bring all this stuff together into a coherent package. And my sense is that we are not effectively engaging private sector contributions into this, largely because we're not speaking the language they understand, which is a commercial language.
I'm going to wind up this now, but first, is there any major point that we haven't touched upon that came up within your group?
I think one last comment maybe from our group was that we need more practical examples. We need to be out there doing something, and
Don't just think about it, don't just talk about it, but actually go off and do something. And that's definitely what the moral motto of today is, for sure. Anything we missed out from yourselves? We've touched upon everything. Obviously the flip charts will all go into the melting pot when it comes to writing the report, the post-it note ideas, all the points that have come up. Is there anything that anyone is sitting there desperate to say and will not sleep tonight because they haven't had the chance to say it, because this is really the final chance? Yes, we have got a microphone over there. We hate you to have a sleepless night.
Hello everyone, I'm from the Church of England, and my question is to everybody that we are body, mind and spirit, and the spirituality of people can contribute to health promotion in a big way, and involvement in faith communities has been shown to strengthen their ability to resist disease and chronic illness, because they are already part of a community that encloses them and supports them. So I think the question is, how does spirituality get included in all our work on health promotion?
I think just on a practical note, I think it was Bob possibly who said this morning about to be fit and healthy enough just to walk to church. I don't know if it was you or not, but one of the speakers certainly did, wasn't it? Spirituality?
I think it's interesting. If you look at, although we only saw a fleeting glimpse of Colin, if you look at some of the work that the ICAA are doing in America, then they've looked at a slightly different wellness model than the one we tend to look at eating, activity and mental health. They're much broader in their approach to wellness. And spirituality is one of their 7 dimensions to wellness in a sense. And I think it's worth looking at because they've done some innovative work out there, but it's also embedded right at the very core of what they see as wellness.
And I think the other thing is, if this doesn't sound too cheesy, I think the access to the green space and the opportunity to actually be in the environment, you know, away from commodities, away from materialism in a very natural way, I've found when I've spoken to people, they find unbelievably restoring of their own mental well-being. And there just is something about green space, which I know has been found through research, that people's well-being improves.
Right, thank you very much. Any further points? No. The aim, just to sum up then, the aims for today were to identify and discuss the benefits of healthy ageing at work, and thus determine the business case for businesses that were attending, particularly for the breakfast this morning, to discuss the obstacles to improving healthy ageing through workplace health interventions. I think we've done that today. And also to identify possible solutions or approaches related to workplace health to improve healthy and active ageing. Colin Milner, when we heard him this morning on the video, he challenged us, didn't he? He said, "The world awaits your answers." That's quite a tall order to ask for a few hours, isn't it, from 100 people? But I think perhaps today's conference has raised lots of questions as well as lots of answers. But just to summarise some of the points that came up today about the business case and the reasons to link workplace health to an active and healthy ageing. We heard about, we're going to have, whether we like it or not, there are going to be older workers, people are going to retire later, there's no statutory age for retirement and so on. But one positive thing of that is we don't lose the skills and the experience. Businesses will save recruitment costs as well. That's something I heard come up in one of the groups. Though the other point was made that there's no good a company having lots of support for people who are suffering from stress in the workplace if it just means they want them to work harder once they've sorted out their stress. So that was a little add-on that I did hear in one of the groups. The major issues to be addressed and the obstacles for doing so. Confused messages and too many messages and so on was one point that was raised. An older workforce doing more physical jobs means that we need to rethink some jobs in the workplace, work out their roles, their skills and so on. They might not be able to go up a ladder or carry a heavy load, rethink the actual assignment of jobs within the workplace. Another issue that came up, another obstacle, is you can't force people to do this. They've got to want to do it. You've got to give them the choice, make it attractive, inspire them with mentors and role models and so on. People need to take their responsibility for themselves. They need to be encouraged, supported. The facilities need to be provided on the doorstep. And people do switch off if they're just told they've got to do it. So that's another obstacle. The financial implications we've touched on as well, both to the employers and the state. And also those with less education and certain social groups, there'll be more of a challenge as well. And the other final one, the sort of the elephant in the room, which actually managed to make itself heard, as they say, is having more older workers presents the challenge of what happens to young people who need that employment. And that certainly was reiterated by our Italian speaker today. Our suggestions and solutions for us to take forward from today: we need to change attitudes in the workplace, whether it's the clothes we wear, sitting at a desk culture, flexi hours, the food we serve, not having buns when it's somebody's birthday, but go for a bunch of grapes instead, I suppose. Also, a health strategy is great in a workplace, but it needs to be led from the top. The managers also need to do this to set an example, whether it's a fitness challenge, going for a walk in the lunch break or whatever. We also heard we should encourage people to plan for their older age. Where will they live? What will they do? What about their social life? What type of work or voluntary work can they undertake? Something that also came out very strongly today was we should involve older people in the decision making and the strategies. It shouldn't happen behind closed doors. We need to talk to them about the triggers, what will make them actually get involved and become more active. We also heard that taster sessions don't work. We need long-term initiatives. We need support that's there to encourage lifelong habits. And also we touched on the fact that the local facilities are there, whether it's a school hall, a school gym, a swimming pool or whatever. We need to think more creatively about how we use the facilities that are right on our doorstep. Now, as I've been saying, the evaluators from UCS will write the report for today's event. So we'll capture the learning that's taken place, and that will go to policymakers, both local and national. And we'd like you in the audience to form a reference group, as I've already said, and on the evaluation form, which I'm hoping you'll be filling in very shortly if you haven't done so already, there's more explanation about that. If there's a collection box for those forms as you go out too, it really does help with planning of conferences if you can give us some honest feedback. The Progress project is very exciting, but it's also, of course, identified challenges. Healthy Ambitions Suffolk do plan to continue to support this work, the work on the healthy ageing in the workplace, right through after the project ends, the funding ends in December 2013. Really looking ahead now, aren't we? But it won't just stop. Hopefully the work will continue. We do have a few thank yous. On behalf of Healthy Ambitions Suffolk, I'd like to thank everyone here at the Trinity Park Conference Centre, whether it's the food, technology or whatever. And of course to David Webb, who's been filming, and you'll be able to see that film on the Healthy Ambitions Suffolk website and the Progress Project websites too eventually in a few days. Can we also say a big thank you to all the speakers, panel members and facilitators, particularly those that travelled a very long way to be here today. And I know also there's a big thank you from Michael and Elspeth to those who've helped the Progress team in the organisation today. So that's Alison, Anne, Andy, Rosa, Dwayne and Lynn. And of course, we do say thank you to you very much indeed for coming today. Please do fill in the evaluation forms. The discussions can continue over lunch, a healthy one, of course. We'll meet up again, actually, back here on the 11th of December, when it's the annual Business Awards from Healthy Ambitions Suffolk. So if your company isn't already involved, they better get moving quite quickly. Thank you very much indeed for coming today. We hope you've got a lot out of it. Most important of all, don't just go home and forget about today. It now is the work that starts. Remember, we don't just think about it and talk about it. We've got to actually do it as well. Thank you very much indeed.